everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Hailie and today I'm going to be sharing all 10 of the books that I read throughout August. So if you've read any of these books, let me know what you guys thought, if we agree or disagree. Honestly, I'm a little bit scared to talk about this first one because it's not even really about the story itself. It's more so the cover. So I'm not even sure I should start with this because I feel like the Magnolia Parks universe stans are going to come at me, but just hear me out from like an outsider's perspective, because for years or whatever, I feel like I've just seen Magnolia Parks covers floating around and I never even bothered to pick one up, see what it was about, because the cover to me just looked like fantasy. If you're like a fan of the series, like you get all of the little like Easter eggs on the covers, if you will, but as just someone browsing the bookstore, it just looked very chaotic and like not the type of book that I'm interested in. So the new covers dropped this year and the Magnolia Parks fans were not impressed. And don't get me wrong, I definitely get it because those covers are more artsy, they look really nice on a bookshelf. I get it, okay? I totally do. But this cover made me pick up the book and actually want to read it. And after reading the story, I just feel like this cover makes more sense. Like, yes, there are all of those Easter eggs in the art on the original cover, but for the style of book, I don't know, I like this cover. So don't yell at me, that's just how I feel. I feel like it just better represents the content of this book, which is it is like a Gossip Girl sort of vibe. It's just not what I expected when I saw the original cover. So getting into my actual review of the book, I did enjoy this book. I finished it in like a day and a half. I don't want to say that I like them because they are unlikable characters. Mostly BJ. BJ really sucks. I actually don't like him, okay? Magnolia is unlikable in her own way, but I loved all the name dropping like designer brands, the rich, luxurious lifestyle, being caught in the tabloids. Like, I love that. I love books like that. So I really enjoyed that from Magnolia, but her relationship with BJ is basically the whole point of this book. And it is so toxic. They're on again, they're off again. They're not together, but they want to be together. Magnolia is dating other people just to make BJ jealous. BJ has like a sex addiction. He's just hooking up with girlies every other night. It is just so toxic, so messy. Honestly, so frustrating to read. But at the same time, I couldn't put it down. Basically, if you're team Chuck and Blair, you will probably enjoy this story. I did end up giving it 3 stars just because it kind of made me mad. Like, I wanted to chuck this book out the window. Like, there is no real character development in this book, but it did grab my attention and I do want to continue the series. So I liked it and I like the cover. Next up, I have Call It What You Want by Alyssa Deragadis, and this was just, I actually started this book in July and it had a very slow start. I thought that I was really going to enjoy this one. It's multiple point of views and it's like another sort of like messy relationship sort of thing. Sloane and Ethan are together but not together, and basically there's just no commitment to having a real relationship. It took me way too long to finish this book for being like 250 pages. It just was very slow, extremely repetitive, and I really didn't buy that these two had chemistry. Honestly, I did want to like this. Just based on the back of the book description alone, I felt like this could be a really good book. But the execution was just not there. The writing, at first I was like, okay, this is the kind of a cute vibe. It was written like you're having a conversation with a friend. There was no real thought or effort put into the writing style, but as you continued to get into the book, you're like, okay, wait, this is actually just bad writing. Like, that was not the intention at all. So unfortunately, I did not really end up enjoying this one. I gave it 2 stars. I would not recommend you waste your time with this one. Next up, I have Going Dark by Melissa de la Cruz, and I actually really like the cover on this one as well. This is a YA novel, and it kind of has a similar vibe to One of Us is Lying, or if you've read Live Your Best Lie, this is very reminiscent of that. At the beginning, I was not sure that I was going to enjoy this one. The writing was just a little bit too YA for me. The main character, Josh, was just dumb. Just like a dumb kid. He's supposed to be college aged, but just like, he just seemed so clueless, very aloof. But as you get into the story, there are so many twists and turns. I thought that I had it figured out. I thought that I knew where this was going, but it just took me on a wild ride. So I enjoyed this book. And I think especially if you are a YA reader, you would enjoy this one. It was pretty fun. It's written in multiple point of views, and it's about Josh, one of the main characters. He's dating this girl, Amelia, who is like this mega influencer with millions of followers. They go on a little trip to Rome, have a fight, he flies home alone, and Amelia is missing. She never came back. And so of course Josh is the #1 suspect. So overall, it turned out to be a lot better than I expected it to be. I did end up giving this one 3 stars as well. It was a cute little mystery. Then I have The Lion's Den by Catherine St. John's, and this was another thriller. I actually picked this one up at the airport on my way to Cancun. Didn't even read it there. Finally got around to reading it, and oh my gosh, I wish I did read it there because it's such a good beach read. This one is definitely a little bit more predictable. You totally know where it's going as the story starts, but it's so fun. The main character, Belle, has been friends with this girl, Summer, for years. In the past few years, they haven't been as close. So Summer invites her out to a trip with her new boyfriend, who is a very old gentleman, billionaire. Honestly, who is going to refuse a free trip to the Mediterranean on a yacht, private jet, living this fabulous life of wealth? But as soon as Belle aboards this trip with a few other girls as well as Summer's mom and sister, it quickly goes off the rails, and it is not at all the vacation of a lifetime that any of them were expecting. I always love a really bitchy sort of read, and the girl Summer is just so ridiculous, over the top. I love it. This one I ended up giving 4 stars to, but I would definitely recommend this one. It was really fun. Definitely a good summer book, and I know that we're heading into fall, but if you're clinging to those last few moments of summer, try to sneak this one in because it was really good. Next, I have The Hunting Wives by May Cobb, and I was so excited about this book. It was our book club pick for August. This one sounded right up my alley. Like I said, I like the bitchy books, and this one says, the Hunting Wives share more than target practice, martinis, and bad behavior in this novel of obsession, seduction, and murder. That sounds like 100% my vibe. But this book, it was a flop. It was a flop. The book club girlies. There was a lot of DNFs this month, and the rest of them that ended up finishing this book along with me, I don't think anyone rated this higher than 3 stars. I ended up with 2, but the main character of this book, Sophie, she leaves her busy life from Chicago, moves to small town Texas, and ends up getting obsessed with this girl, Margot, who's like the local socialite. Margot invites her into the Hunting Wives exclusive club, and it's basically like these women get together, have some wine, go shooting. It's all good fun. However, one of the games that the Hunting Wives play is they go hunting, but not when they are shooting and out with their guns. No. They go hunting at bars for men and just like cheat behind their husband's back. I don't really like cheating storylines in books to begin with, but this one was just absolutely off the rails because it's not just like one affair. No, it's like they're going out and they're just hooking up willy-nilly. Sophie has like a very over-the-line crush on Margot. There's like weird hooking up with like teenage boys, and these are grown women. Like, this book gave me the ick. But this book is also a thriller, which is really an afterthought here, I think, because the thrill of this book doesn't happen until like you have like 1/3 of the book left. Overall, just it was not for me. It was very cringy and hard to get through. Nobody's likable, and just like in Magnolia Parks, where they're unlikable but you still kind of like them, these women, there's just nothing redeemable about them. It is just messy and gross and not fun. So this one was definitely disappointing. Honestly, as I'm looking at my book stack, there were a lot of disappointments this month, including this one, The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And I actually have another book by Geneva Rose that I really enjoyed. One of Us is Dead. It's very like funny. It's kind of like a satirical thriller, like if the Real Housewives were wrapped up in murder. This one was just like blah. It's multiple point of views. The wife Sarah, and then the husband, I don't even remember his name, Adam. Adam gets caught up in all this drama and is a suspect for the murder of his mistress. But his wife Sarah is a lawyer and she's determined to get him out of this big scandal. Messy. A formula for a good book, just saying. But the way that this was written, it just was, it was all over the place. Adam sucks. He's a gross guy. He's very vulgar. Like, I don't like when there are spicy scenes and they're just like so vulgar with how they describe things. It's like, it's gross. There's a lot of that in here. I just didn't really have any connection to any of these characters. Didn't really care for any of them, honestly. But I will say the twist at the end kind of redeemed everything, and I totally didn't see it coming. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. I think that there's definitely an audience out there that would really enjoy this book, but for me personally, it just was not my vibe. And on that same note, Cross Her Heart by Sarah Pinborough. Again, I've read another book by her and I liked that book, so I thought that I would maybe like this one. I did end up giving this one 2 stars, but I am kind of debating if this is a 1 star. The writing was so jumpy and confusing. There's multiple point of views throughout this book. So it starts off with the mom Lisa and then her daughter Ava, and you get their point of view. The mom is extremely protective. She's definitely like a helicopter parent. It alludes to something happening in their past that she had to like escape from and that made her this way. Like, as the story unfolds, you're kind of trying to figure out like what happened in the past. And so I had a couple ideas, but I was definitely off base with this one. The twists in here though were just, I don't know, this might, okay, trigger warning, there is death of a child in here, and there's just a lot that goes into that. I don't like reading about that. I don't want to hear it, I don't want to read it, I don't want any part of it. So there's that storyline, and then like a separate one. I don't really want to give anything away, of course, although I would definitely not recommend you read this and waste your time because oh my god, this took forever to get through as well. Then I have Cloud Girls, which, another trigger warning in this one. It's pretty graphic. It is about sex trafficking. This one also has multiple point of views. You have 2 different girls from very different walks of life that end up in sex trafficking. And I thought this was a pretty eye-opening book. It is very sad, obviously. It is a very, very tragic story. And at first it was a little bit hard to get into because like one of the main characters, Nico, she's from like a small town, I can't even remember where, small village in Eastern Europe. But the way that, like, I don't know, some of the words that they say, if you have read Where the Crawdads Sing, where it's like that thick southern dialect, it's kind of like a similar vibe where you're like, I have no idea what that means. And then the other girl, Sammy, she's from Ireland, so there's like some words there that I'm like, what are we talking about? 2 very different girls, 2 very different lives, but they all kind of just end up overlapping. Once I got into this story, I couldn't put it down. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I would recommend it, but just be warned, it's a tough one. Actually, in the author's note here, she says, although Cloud Girls is a work of fiction, it was inspired by my involvement in the Stop Sex Trafficking of Children and Young People campaign. At the launch of the campaign in 2012, I was invited to read firsthand accounts of some of the girls that had been trafficked for sex trade. The stories of the girls I was asked to read that day haunted me. Many sleepless nights followed, and I found myself unable and unwilling to forget. Cloud Girls exploded onto the page some years later, when finally I could no longer ignore the impetus to give voice to these girls' experiences. The characters of Sammy and Nico are composites of many testimonies I read. I wanted parallel storylines to illustrate the experience of how a young girl can both be domestically and internationally trafficked. Common denominator is vulnerability, youth, and lack of parental and societal protection. So I thought that was really interesting. She based this off real life, and obviously we know sex trafficking is a huge issue that has just kind of kept on exploding over the years, and it truly happens in plain sight. So I found this to be really eye-opening, but it's really sad. These last two are thrillers that I read in my Reading Thrillers for a Week video at the very beginning of the month, and I talked pretty extensively about these books in that video. So I won't go on too much about these. I don't know, it feels maybe repetitive, but The Last Word, amazing. This is like a 4.5 for me. The main character leaves a 1-star review on an author's book, and the author is like fighting back with her in the comments, and then all of a sudden all of these crazy things start happening in her house. Like someone is stalking her, watching her, breaking in, like weird things are going on. That of course turns out to be the author that she left the 1-star review on. And then throughout this book there's like, and this book is also written in multiple point of views, but it's like you're getting the story from Emma, I want to say her name's Emma Carpenter, and she's talking about what is going on, and like it's a first-hand account of what is actually happening. And then you're also getting the author's point of view as if he were to write what was going on. So there are a few things that are just not adding up in their stories. The author is definitely making himself look and sound a lot better, so it's very funny, but it's also an adrenaline rush. This book gave me anxiety, but this was really fun. It was crazy. I could not put it down, and I would highly recommend this one if you're looking for like a very suspenseful thriller. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. And last but not least, Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True. This is her newest release, and I had been so excited to read this one. Again, I don't want to rehash the whole thing. That video was spoiler free, so I'll link that down below if you want to hear more. But the gist of this book is when a famous podcaster interviews a stranger, promising to divulge the story of a lifetime, secrets emerge that threaten to expose the truth of the lives they've both worked hard to project and protect. This story had me reeling because, as the title implies, you're reading this knowing like none of this is actually true, and then you get to the end and you're like, wait, actually, what was anything real? I don't know. At one point I'm thinking one thing, and then the next I'm like, no, this is what's happening. Absolutely incorrect on both accounts. This was also a really fun read. I love Lisa Jewell's writing style, and in this one it was especially interesting because you're kind of getting a transcript of like a documentary alongside the story. So it's kind of talking about things that happened in the past, little hints about what is really going on, and then you're reading like the past point of view of what went down before the documentary came out and why there's a documentary at all. So it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed this one, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars too. So that is my August reading wrap up. These are the 10 books that I read this month, and honestly, until I did this wrap up right now, I didn't realize that there were so many kind of sucky ones. Not my best reading month, but at least I can finally check them off my TBR and get them off my shelf. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out with me. Let me know if you also read any of these books and what your thoughts were. But I will see you guys again soon. Bye!